Okay, then I think I can start, and while people are joining, I think I just make some short introduction. So first of all, very welcome from my side to our last IREB Roundtable for this year. Quite early in the year, quite late in the year, and quite late in the evening today, at least when looking at the European time. And I'm very happy that so many people are joining this session. I think this session in general is quite interesting because everyone is somehow wondering on how to come to their requirements, and I think this is a very important task in requirements engineering. So that's why I'm happy to have Karolina and Sylwia in this session. But first of all, before introducing Karolina and Sylwia, maybe I just want to give you some information that this session will be recorded, and we will make this session available via YouTube probably by beginning of next week, but I will inform you as soon as this session or as this recording is available online. And as in every of our roundtables, if you have any questions, please just use the chat and throw your question, and I will try to moderate this question just into our discussion. Because it's my job as of today. I'm happy to have the two panelists, but I'm only the moderator and trying to keep the discussion going. So then maybe a short introduction of Karolina and Sylwia. Karolina, do you want to start shortly to introduce yourself?
Why me? Okay, could be me. Okay, so my name is Karolina. I'm coming from Poland. Sylwia as well, by the way. We are not living in the same city. I am closer to Szczecin, but the name of the city probably will not tell you nothing. So it's more or less close to Szczecin. I am in the business since 2005, if I could remember correctly, mostly in business analysis, system analysis. But I also have quality management background, and I'm using this background to manage processes, including the business analysis processes. And what else? I'm involved in IREB, of course. Sylwia, your turn.
Okay, thank you. So hello, everybody. My name is Sylwia Kopczyńska. As already Karolina has said, I'm also from Poland. I'm from Poznań, the city that is located 300 kilometers, about 300 kilometers to the east from Berlin, about 300 kilometers to the Baltic Sea, about 300 kilometers to the mountains, and about 300 kilometers to the capital of Poland, so to Warsaw. So quite nice location. And here we have quite nice also industry and universities. And in my professional career, I try to combine these two perspectives, these two fields. I am a software engineer and a researcher. So in the field of requirements, I work at the Poznań University of Technology. I'm mostly interested in non-functional requirements in this area and in elicitation. So I guess this is the reason why I'm here. But I also conduct research about software quality and agile software development. I'm also involved in creating, organizing, and being a program committee of conferences that are related to requirements, like the International Requirements Engineering Conference, or RESCUE, or ICSI, or ESA. On the other hand, I'm also a practitioner. So I work as a software engineer, as a backend developer, and here I develop systems, usually mostly on the backend side, and I have experience in the domains like insurance, software development, travel, pharmacy, and accounting and banking. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sylwia. Thank you, Karolina. So I'm really happy having you two here in the session. I think this is already the second one this year. First one was also about requirements and maybe you help me, I've just forgotten.
It was about quality of requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now today we just say, because this was also a topic that came up last time when we discussed about this point, how do we then in general come to our requirements? Because this is a core task of a requirements engineer or a business analyst, to find out what the people really want, because at the end we need to have their requirements to come up with a proper solution. And so when asking ourselves how to start to collect requirements, so what's your idea, Karolina?
The first thing is using the word collecting. In Polish, we have a perfect word for that. In English, it would sound, well, I will not, I will not hurt you with our Polish, but in English, it would be something like, we are picking requirements. And I really hate this word, because we are not picking anything. Picking implies that it's ready to be picked, to be collected. It's not. Yeah, we need to derive requirements. So for me, the proper word will be elicitation, maybe identification, but from the semantic point of view, it's also not really a relevant term. So let's state with elicitation, okay? Collecting, no, you can collect mushrooms from the forest, but not requirements.
That's true.
Yeah, so how to actually start collecting eliciting requirements? Maybe I would just give you one recommendation, maybe from the beginning. And the beginning is actually identification of the source of requirements. If you want to know any information, first you need to look for the source. Yeah. And that is one of the problems, because, well, from my experience, many people are thinking that the only right source of requirements is what? The customer, or in the worst case, the user. No, they are not the only sources of requirements. There are much more. And this is, for me, this is the first step. Understand what you want to elicit and what is the proper source.
Yeah, true. I think that there are so many sources that we have to cover as requirements engineers and business analysts. And most often we start with the context that is set. So Sylwia, do you have any ideas? Because you're quite familiar with elicitation, I think context of requirements is something that's quite usual.
Yeah, right. So like following what Karolina has said about this, starting from the sources. So what you really usually start from is the identification of what is the problem, right? What is the problem that you are really triggering? So what is the thing that you wanted to solve? And then you can look for those sources, and those sources create a kind of your boundary for that you can influence, so that the requirements that you would like to collect, to elicit from, that will describe it, that will describe this this system, the boundary, or the part of the system, or a bunch of the systems. And it is very, very important to know where is your influence, where you can really work on, and where you are just to use some external systems, or there's no field for you to influence. That is the first thing. And when you have this kind of boundary that we usually draw in a context diagram, then we also identify the context, so the elements that we have in our world that we can influence, that we consider when we are building systems that influence our work, our system, how we will build it up, how we will design, right? So the context is created usually, or defined usually, by the factors, and those factors could be like the things that we have, like the machines, the systems that would create this system, could be people, could be the things that they interoperate with, that they use to have this to solve this problem. So they could be like different ideas, or they could be even the documents that are considered that influence us, but are important and influence the things how we do it. So the context that is inside the system boundary and the context factors that are outside, but that influence our system and our world that we are designing and then we are working on.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to add one more thing, if I might. You mentioned the context and different factors, and one of the factors that is actually one of the great source of requirements are all the, let's say, regulations, laws, restrictions that we have, and we will need to consider when building the system, yeah? And without understanding the context, as Sylwia said, we will not know the source of requirement. So our system will be, well, in the best case, not complete. In the worst case, it cannot be even accepted because it will not meet legal regulations.
Yeah, that was just popping up in my head because just before this session, we talked about that you currently have a training with some people from automotive, and especially automotive have quite a lot of regulations and that they have to consider also as requirement source in general. And that's the reason why that we say, hey, when considering requirements and when trying to elicit requirements, it's not only people you can ask, you also have to look at what kind of regulations, what kind of existing systems, legacy systems, documentations, as Sylwia also said, that needs to be considered in my point of view. Perfect. And
but the context could be also the temperature, right? When you are building a kind of system that will be used outside to support some, for example, workers, external workers. So it has to, for example, they struggle or they work in the minus temperature, so so then this could be also the context, the environment in which they work, and this is very important to identify it.
Again, if you don't know the context, you have no clue that those people will work in these specific conditions.
Exactly.
So you will build incorrect system.
Yeah. And based on that, you will ask different questions, because if you understand the context, you can ask your, let's say, the stakeholders involved, the questions in a certain direction, especially, for instance, as you mentioned, Sylwia, if you have, let's say, conditions from temperature, weather, whatever, then you might consider different aspects, especially if you're working currently in rain situation, then you may have, let's say, another kind of user interface, whatever that's required. Okay, fine. When looking at the context, so I mean, on the one thing, we mentioned that it's quite important to see what's inside, but I think it's also quite important to say what is not inside. So this means what's really outside of my scope, or of the scope of this, let's say, project or of this product, whatever will be developed. I think this is also quite interesting, especially if we look to, let's say, clients that will pay for the product, or for instance, let's see an entire project, that we see what's in and what's out of scope. Therefore, it's also quite interesting. Coming to another point. So when talking about context, yes, this is the one thing, but who are the stakeholders? Who do we come to the stakeholders, Karolina? So when, let's say, we have first identified the context, will this help us to identify stakeholders as well?
It should, because basically stakeholders are in the context. Yeah, our users, our customers, they are part of the context. So understanding the context will at least help you to understand stakeholders, and that is, well, that would be the first step to understand their needs. Yeah. And stakeholders basically, and this is another myth that people are often confused with, that stakeholders are not only the customer and users. Stakeholders are also people who are somehow involved with the project. Stakeholders are also organizations. So all the regulatory bodies, they are stakeholders as well. Competitors, they are also stakeholders, and that's really tricky. Yeah. And what does it have to do with requirements? Well, stakeholders are one of the most important sources of requirements, not only requirements, but also limitations, risks, assumptions, things that will help us to manage the cooperation, like they can, let's say, they can phrase different concerns, fears, Without understanding these fears, we are not able to manage properly their expectations. Yeah. So for me, this is one of the most important preconditions to even think about starting an elicitation. Understanding stakeholders, who are they? What are the, let's say, characteristics? Because probably we know that we have stakeholders that are important, that are not so important, and that are very, very, very important with big power. Yeah. So understanding who are these people, how they can impact me, who is the critical one that I should really work with. Yeah. So that for me would be the first step in preparing for elicitation. Okay. They also can point important information, like, for example, when working on the system, please look at similar systems. Yeah. A stakeholder can give me this suggestion. Of course, I can find it by myself, but this is why we're talking with people, to understand their point of view and to get more information. Would you add something to that, Sylwia?
Yeah, I think that the most important, just to sum up, the most important is that you have to have like blend different or combine different perspective, which is called usually triangulation, so that you have many sources and many points of view, many perspective, and you try to not collect the requirements, but take those perspectives into account, and then try to formulate, try to really document the best requirements that you have. And sometimes people who may have contrary interests could also bring you some clues for getting requirements.
Yeah, true.
Stan, I would
don't
like
be
to...
afraid. I would say, don't be afraid with interaction.
You said something very important, and when looking at the stakeholders, when trying to understand them, we are looking from different perspectives, not trying to collect requirements. Yes, that is one of the most important mistakes. We are asking people, give me requirement. And we think that they really give us requirements that are consistent, well-built, blah, blah, blah. They will not. This is our role.
True. Coming back to the point of stakeholders, maybe once again, you just mentioned that there are, let's say, different types or groups, whatever, of stakeholders. Could be users, clients, customers, for sure. I mean, they are somehow vicious, but also people that are indirectly somehow impacted. And so in my opinion, also the people from operations. So for instance, that need to maintain the systems and need to operate the systems, they are super important, because if they are not in the boat and if they don't have the requirements, for instance, for monitoring, for reporting, for maintenance and topics, this will also be an issue. I've experiences also in several projects that if you just forget the operations guys, you will be in trouble in the very end.
You know, I'm laughing because in one of my first projects, our business people, our business representatives, by accident forgot about the end users. The project was for banking.
Okay.
The bank business forgot about end users, tellers in the bank branch. That was a disaster.
Yeah.
Because we missed the whole functionalities. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And do you have any let's say hints or ideas, best practices on how to come to this, let's say, complete list of relevant stakeholders? Because I think what I've also experienced in the very beginning, for sure, creating the context, a kind of context model will help to identify the first ones. But I think then you are not complete. Am I right?
Yeah, could be. Well, there are many tools. Sylwia, probably you are better than me in this in naming this tooling. But just to give you one example, the onion diagram by Alexander, or the Mitchell's Alliance model for classification. There are also some, let me call it, checklist for typical stakeholders. So there is some tool support for that. And from my perspective, tools properly used, they really help. But still, I accept the risk that I could miss someone. Yeah, and I need to take this risk into consideration.
Yeah, and what I've at least experienced in several projects I have done, the more you learn about the system, and the more you learn about, let's say, the requirements you're somehow eliciting, then you maybe also identify additional stakeholders, because then you see there needs to be some interface, some other users who are taking care about whatever. And
for me, process mapping,
kind of
process mapping,
approach.
or maybe not mapping, but process modeling is really helpful. Or just following. Well, imagine that we are working on a system that will need to automate some processes, and understanding how these processes are working currently, understanding who's involved, will really help you to uncover stakeholders that are kind of hidden at the first glance.
Yeah, but what was very important that you both said is that from one hand we have the perspective of the problem solution, so the problem space when you have the process that is supported by the system that we are developing, right? So there are the stakeholders, and also the stakeholders are from the point of view that we have this system transited, that we have this maintained, and those are also the stakeholders who will interact with the system, but will not be directly in the process supported by the system.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So let's assume we have all stakeholders, or most of the stakeholders identified. Then next step would be somehow finding out what are their real needs, to explore their needs, to find out their real requirements, maybe also to understand their problems. What are techniques or best practices that we can use, Sylwia?
Techniques? Oh, there are the many of them, and you can really choose from those that are really I would say manual up to automated ones, and this is the thing to choose the proper one, knowing your boundary, knowing your stakeholders, knowing what you can do to elicit. So let me name just a few of them. I would divide them from those typical from I would say social sciences, that are interviews, observation, ethnographic studies, focus group meetings, that you really go either observe the end users in action or talk to all the stakeholders, either in groups or individually. Also, you can do some surveys, conduct some surveys, and among large group of stakeholders. So those are the techniques that we usually associate with elicitation and with those social sciences that we really can base the software engineering from the social sciences. But then there are many techniques that were developed based on those elicitation techniques that are more automated and more, I would say, computer supported. From, for example, the sources that are the places where you can share feedback, from crowd requirements engineering. I mean, so for example, you analyzed platform X for the feedback, or you analyze some forum or some kind of place or app store where your end users share information about the system that is built, right? So this could be the automated analysis of your thing. Then there are some approaches that also use or try to make use of the other medium of communication, for example videos or social media platforms. So for example, you can use YouTube, or you can use Facebook for getting their analyzing their some information. And again, for example, for constructing your context. So for example, learning more about your users. Instagram is a great source, because there are people uploading pictures and documenting what they are doing, so you know in which places they could use your system, for example. So this is the kind of idea. And nowadays, more and more people start to use automated way of elicitation or of trying to analyze those some prototypes to refine their systems with having a biofeedback. So you know, eye tracking, analyzing your face motion, or how is your heart rate or something like that. So this is also like very important to have it. So this is on the other hand that you can have supported by computer techniques, or you can have the traditional social science. What I would also add to that are the techniques that are somehow refined on or dedicated for certain types of requirements. Like, for example, if we look at requirements concerning security, then the elicitation technique that is very frequently used is about identifying different threats, and the answer to mitigate those threats could be the requirements that you define for your system, for example, right? So you have like misuse cases, threats analysis, something like that. So that are the first elicitation techniques that come to my mind.
From the other point of view, we have techniques that are based on so-called artifacts, on documentation. Yeah, so documentation even of existing system. Using those techniques could be quite annoying because they can be really time-consuming. But from the other point of view, how to collect requirement, how to guess requirement for a system that is quite old, no documentation, or in theory we have documentation, in practice this documentation is useful, useless. So how to get requirements? We are analyzing existing system, and we are deriving requirements from the source code, from observation of the system behavior. Yeah, and those techniques are based on something like document, like source code, like the existing system. Yeah, and from the other point of view, we also have techniques that are, how to say that, they are not to gather information, they are rather to create information. So we have techniques that support creativity. Probably you all know at least one of them, brainstorming. When you are trying to solve a problem that is, quite challenging, we don't have a ready solution for that, we are using those kind of techniques. Yeah, so as Sylwia said, there is really a big list of techniques. Not only the typical ones that we tend to use, like workshops for everything, yeah, and interviews also for everything. The rest not existing. Yeah, the list is long.
Yeah, that's true.
And there are like different granularity techniques, as Karolina said, right? Because you can have a workshop. In a workshop, you can use, for example, threat modeling, or you can use some checklist or something like that. But also you have a framework, like, for example, design thinking, in which you have different stages and different phases of that are more complex and that involve like using those techniques for designing the system, right?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of idea.
Yeah, true. And I think also it depends a bit on what type of requirements you're looking for. Are you looking for, let's say, some kind of, when you look at the Kano model, basis factors or excitement factors, then different techniques are required to just, let's say, identify them correctly and to let the user or your stakeholder know what is really required. What I also like is especially, let's say, as you mentioned, Karolina, looking at the system, because I think if we change an existing system, we need to understand how the system is behaving, how the system looks like, and also one step further, how the people interact with the system. So this means a kind of whatever observation apprenticing to just see how the people today are interacting with the system, just if you want to have a kind of improval or some extension of it.
And actually, that's a good point, because currently we can use advanced technologies for that, also based on AI, and we can use some kind of, let me call it, automated process recording, when a kind of tool is recording what the users are doing, and a tool is analyzing, for example, which steps of the process people are just skipping. And that could indicate a problem because they are skipping a step in the process for a reason. Either it is not necessary, or they ignore the procedure, or they just found a better workaround. So something needs to be improved here.
This could be an indicator, but I think we need to talk to people then, just to understand their rationale behind.
I would like to comment on one thing, because you mentioned that, and I'm completely, I agree with that we can select proper technique according to the type of the requirement or the classification scheme that we would like to achieve, like the Kano model. Yes, exactly. But it will require from you to first plan the elicitation activities. Absolutely. Without planning, understanding what I want to get, what type of information, forget about selecting the right technique, because you will just guess.
True. What do you think? Do we have, especially for elicitation, a kind of checklists that can be used to not forget about important, let's say, areas of requirements?
I'm using a checklist that is basically ISO standard, that is quality model, software quality model square, that is a perfect, let me call it a cheat list for requirements elicitation, because again, typically we tend to ask about functionalities, because that's quite easy, that's quite visible, that is something that stakeholders understand, and something that we can observe. But the area that Sylwia is an expert, non-functional requirements, that's pain, and you know which part of the body. And this square model will help you to understand that, okay, we are not asking only about features, functions, call them as you like. We also need to understand, okay, is there any security aspect that we want to understand? Is there any performance? And that could be a challenge, because I am a business analyst. I'm not really technical. Well, to be honest, I'm not a technical at all. Yeah. But still, I know that there are some non-functional, so qualities that can be relevant in a given domain. For example, if we are talking about, I don't know, health system, healthcare, I would say reliability, performance sounds like something important. So at least I will ask. At least I will ask. If I cannot formulate the question, then I know that, okay, the elicitation effort needs to be supported by, I don't know, architect, some technical guy. So from my perspective, I can use ready checklist taken from standard. And I also have created a kind of internal checklist for, for preparing for the elicitation, so that I will not forget about any important task.
Okay. Sylwia, anything to add?
Agree with the checklist, because like in ISO 25010, you can find characteristics, sub-characteristics that are usually used as a triggers during workshops to, as Karolina said, to trigger the discussion about some requirements. The checklist that you can also use are the threats that I've already mentioned, for example, security. So you can go, for example, to OWASP, you can go to Mitra, you can go to Stride, and they define different questions or different threats that you can like go through and just do it like that. You can also look to different books, like for Robertson, they have like the idea of having this kind of checklist for having it. So this could be for sure like that. I would also do, if you allow me, a private advertising for templates for non-functional requirements that we are working on at Poznań University of Technologies. That could be also a checklist, because they suggest you some non-functional requirements that you can maybe at least discuss with your stakeholders or consider while writing down your requirements. And I would also go for domain checklist, usually for subsystems that you have different processes, and those processes are like categorized. So you know also the domain. So if you are new to the domain, it is also good to go for such manuals that describe certain processes that could be standardized or not. And then also going through a process, how the process should look like, analyzing each step, could be a kind of checklist or a kind of, you know, somehow to make your work more systematic for having this kind of idea.
Sylwia, you mentioned templates. Templates can be a great help, because if you have a, well, maybe not perfect, okay, let's agree, but if you have a good if you have a good requirement template, especially quality requirement template, then you know which information you should ask. And with qualities, we all know that the problem is that they are not like functions. Either the function is working or not working. It's not like 1 and 0. Yeah, we need to have a kind of scale. We need to know how to measure this quality. And without understanding what exactly I want to measure, you don't know which question to ask. So I would really agree, and I would really encourage you to think about using a good template that actually will help you to ask the proper questions.
Yeah, it's true. At least some hint you can take, and that you have some guideline, and then I think things start rolling, and then you can ask additional questions, because the more you understand the topic, the more you can ask. Because I mean, what you have to be as a requirements engineer or business analyst, to be curious, to ask questions, to ask why is this needed and what is really needed. I think this is
that's a really nice thing. You have to be curious, and the other that could be added to that is you have to learn active listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
This is the best technique for interacting with people, right?
Yeah.
And for eliciting requirements.
This somehow brings me to the questions of when I'm, let's say, have my stakeholders, but how to motivate them that they really tell me what they need. I mean, yes, we talked about elicitation. This is one thing, but I mean, this is also maybe some kind of personal relationship sometimes, isn't it?
Could be. Of course, could be. Could be also the matter if I who is the person that I should or shouldn't motivate? Because this is also about, you know, the importance of the stakeholder, and the attitude of the stakeholder. If someone is against the project, that you will really have a problem with motivating this person.
True.
What would you say, Sylwia? Because this is really a nice topic.
Yeah, this is the thing that is one of the challenges that has no easy answer for that. But for sure, the building a relationship is a very, very important thing, right? To know the person, know what is their language of communication, and usually what the two things that come from my experience, at least, is three things, I would say. First, define the roles and responsibilities. So everybody knows what is their role and the responsibility, and why they are like taking part in elicitation, why I'm contacting them, at least. So this is the thing to know why. The second thing is about learning the problem. So what problem we are doing and what we are solving, and that they have the share in solving the problem, right? The share, the importance, and without them, the problem will not be solved. And following from that is showing also the value, what the value they are providing for the whole system, and later on for the problem to be solved. So I think those that are the things that I would first start from. And you, Karolina, what you would start from motivating?
You know, if I want to motivate someone, then first I would need to understand, several things in parallel. I don't know how to explain. First, I need to understand the attitude, really the attitude, because if someone's attitude is negative, and I know that from the stakeholder analysis, I know that, okay, just using some motivation techniques will not help, because I don't know what is the source of the negative attitude. And unfortunately, sometimes the source, the reason of this negative attitude is coming from the very, very, very beginning. We are starting a change project and people are just forced to be a part of the change. And sorry, but whatever I will do probably will not convince them that this change is needed because they are, for example, afraid. Yeah. So that is the worst case. The better case is when I really can do something to change this negative attitude to positive attitude. Sometimes, and Sylwia, you, by the way, you mentioned it. Sometimes it's enough to explain what is the goal of the change, why we are changing a system, why we are planning to introduce a new system, not to fire you guys, but to enable you to do your job better, to automate some manual activities so that you can focus yourself on more attractive jobs. Yeah, so explaining, sharing knowledge sometimes is a way to getting the motivation. Sometimes what is working from my side is, that is actually my experience, that if I want to make people really willing to contribute, I need to make them be aware that actually this is their change. They are changing the environment. They are changing the organization. I'm just asking questions. Yeah, they can change. They have the power, and I'm only helping. Yeah, so that they feel powerful.
That's true. I mean,
That's
they can. They are in a change process, but I think the good thing they have to understand is that they can shape the new world and the new systems.
Exactly.
This is
These are their decision, not mine.
Yeah. There's an interesting question coming in the chat. So it's a bit more, we have an over-motivated stakeholder putting in his requirements that are interesting from, let's say, her perspective, but maybe are not interesting or, let's say, required by the project. I know such people.
Over-motivated, that's a new word.
Yeah. How to handle this? How to make this the stakeholders somehow aware that thank you for your requirement, but not as a moment.
Don't need it.
Do you have any experience?
Oh my gosh, I have a very short answer for that. I know I'm simplifying, but maybe it's a good time to use 5 why technique. 5 why that will help the stakeholder to understand that the requirement that I'm submitting is not actually a requirement, but this is just a wish. Not really valuable wish. And to be serious, well, when requirements are necessary, when they contribute to some value. If they don't, they are not necessary. That is your answer, guys. If you define the project goal, if you know where are you going, if you know which value should you bring, then it's quite easy to classify which requirements are valuable, which are not. The end of the story. One disclaimer, if the stakeholder submitting these requirements is your boss, be careful.
Yeah, it's true, but also then, I mean, you should at least ask: is this, let's say, making the project, the product more successful? Because when looking at our goals and looking at our context boundary, is this really in scope or not? Because I mean, they can have everything they can pay, being honest. But
yes,
very simple question.
Like showing the priorities and having a transparent, I would say, system, methods or technique for giving those priorities could like also help them to understand that maybe this would be for later, but for sure not ignoring a person. And making them, okay, we can do it later, but let's think what is, like, if you start from first thing, so what is MVP, what is then to add to bring the value, what do we want to achieve, right? So to have like that. And if the person is over, how was the word?
Over-motivated.
So maybe trying to engage the person in other activities, in
valuable activity,
talking to other stakeholders to really learn if those requirements are the things, right? So taking active part in workshops, in something like that, so that the person knows that.
One, let's say, tips from me, what is typically working, who will use this requirement, how often, in which situation. if the stakeholder submitting this requirement is not able to answer, then he will probably start to think, do I really need it?
Yeah, and I think this is also true because there was just an, let's say, follow-up question, if this is coming from the sponsor or from the project board. I mean, the same rules apply to them in general, being honest.
I don't care. Yeah, we have a value to deliver and we have a budget we need to adhere to.
Exactly.
So we need to implement things that are valuable.
Yeah, yeah.
If they want to spend money on nothing, on no value, where in the end, this is their decision. From my side, I'm asking questions so that they are aware that we are implementing unnecessary things. If they are okay with that, be my guest.
Yeah, true. I think we need to be somehow transparent. We make them aware of it. But if they are, let's say, forcing to do, and everyone is, let's say, okay with it, maybe that something else is somehow deprioritized, then this is maybe the way to go. Maybe it's not the most elegant, but I mean, at the end, they will pay the bill.
At the end, Stan, this is my lessons learned. At the end, after some time, they will understand that they asked for something without value.
Exactly.
And they will rethink their approach.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I will come back to the thing that I already mentioned for roles and responsibilities. So who has the final word for saying and for dedicating the budget for the next iteration, for the next sprint, for the next month of our project? Who has the final word to decide, yes, I want to spend 100,000 euro for this requirement, right? So like if you work in Scrum, it could be a product owner. If you have product managers, somebody usually has this final word. And also, you know, having this kind of division, transparent division of responsibilities also helps.
Yeah, because someone will be responsible for making stupid decisions. And that is a nice lessons learned for the future.
That brings me to another question. I mean, if this is maybe the sponsor or whom else that is coming up with whatever strange requirements, this is one point. But what we also quite often experience, I guess, is that we have requirements and we think we have a shared understanding, but between, let's say, different business departments, they have, let's say, another hidden goal, whatever, and then we have some conflicts within the requirements. Could be, let's say, that the requirements itself are somehow conflicting, that they are ambiguous, whatever. How to handle this? Is this a job that we need to handle in requirements engineering?
That's a typical conflict management, a normal case. Yeah, it always happens, I would say, because, well, requirements are coming from different sources. We don't control the sources, so the sources could have different opinions. This is our job, yes, to well, at least try to resolve requirements conflicts. And there is, of course, another set of techniques for that. But sometimes solving requirements conflicts is very easy. If you understand who is involved, sometimes the conflict just disappeared. Because we have involved party that has a big power and a low power, and you have the answer. So again, that is why the preparation, the stakeholder analysis, stakeholder engagement is so important, because sometimes it really helps in activities that are not elicitation itself, like conflict resolution, and many more.
And what is very important is also that if you have a conflict, if you notice it, try not to hide it. Try to bring it up and really try your best to solve it as you can, because if you hide it, then it will appear sometime. It will hurt you even more, because it would be a hidden requirement or a hidden case, and it will bring more danger or more, I would say, damage than at the beginning.
Yeah, true. Yeah, especially if this is implemented and just during the live or during testing phase, you will experience that there is this conflict, and this will be really an issue. And maybe this product is not used or whatever.
Well,
that's,
if you
that's
have a
why I'm
conflict that
sorry.
is manifesting only after going live, that I would say we have a big problem, because it
Absolutely.
suggests that we
Yeah,
have big gaps in requirements engineering, including requirements elicitation, that we didn't get this requirement.
That's why I mentioned. I think that's the point Sylwia mentioned. We need to, if we identify a conflict within the requirements, then we need to bring it up, because otherwise this will hurt dramatically. And this should come up during, let's say, a kind of validation review phase latest. Yeah. But when we talk about eliciting requirements in whatever workshops, interviews, name it, what would be the best way, in your opinion, to somehow start writing down your requirements? To just, I mean, the entire goal of doing this elicitation and let's say writing things down is to create a shared understanding between all the participants on the one side, and also to create a shared understanding for people who are developing and testing it. But how to let's say start documenting, especially for this kind of validation review phase?
I personally, I'm doing a lot of modeling. So typically when sitting on a workshop or doing an interview, I'm just sharing screen and I'm writing down what I heard. And we have several things at once. First, I need modeling to understand information. Yeah, so I am doing modeling to understand the information. And from the other side, I'm explaining what I'm doing so the stakeholder can validate it. Yeah, that is my approach, that I'm using that approach in many cases, and it is really working. What about you, Sylwia? Because I know that you are working in non-functional requirements, which are challenging.
So like with documenting, I would start with like documenting the information, not the requirement, right? Because when you are like, as Karolina said, you are interacting or you are doing some analysis or you are analyzing the documents, first is to document. And especially, for example, you can document it on paper, you can document it electronically, you can just have a recording of a meeting like we have it here, for that you can come back later and really see what people said. So this is the thing. Based on that, you have to choose the notation, the way you will communicate the requirements that is suitable for the people who will work with your requirements, right? So sometimes you have people who like natural language, and then you can choose, for example, user stories, use cases, or just plain scenarios for documenting. Sometimes you have to document like the requirements in a formal way. So for example, like in temporal logic or in notation Z or something like that. So you have to choose the notation that will be clear and easy to understand to people who will work with the requirements. So this is a very, very important thing. And also when you have the requirements, and coming back to what we were talking in the previous webinar, you mentioned about the quality of requirements, and then we, with Karolina, we mentioned the quality characteristic of a requirement, that it should be simple, that it should be concise, that it should be measurable, verifiable, traceable, and easy to modify, so that you have also considered that how you will make your requirement possible to verify. So will I have it in my notation that I have a acceptance criteria together with my requirement? Will I have my screens, or do I have a prototype that documents the visual aspect of my system or not? So this is also very, very important to have the notation. So have the attributes of your requirement that you know that are enough. And usually, what also comes to my mind is like in agile software development, we call it like definition of ready. So when you work with your team and say when requirement is ready, right? So you defined all the attributes, all the things that you have to define with your requirement that will be, okay, it's ready to be considered then. So also try to think about this definition of ready, of defining the attributes, all the information that is needed for the requirement.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important, that, well, whatever we do, formal notations or plain text, we need to select the communication form that is relevant for a given stakeholders. Exactly. And we often forget it. We are just writing down what we think is important and in a form that we prefer. And that creates misunderstanding because stakeholders cannot really read it and understand.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is super important when looking at requirements engineering, especially at elicitation. I mean, as mentioned in the beginning, we are doing all this kind of tasks because we want to create a kind of shared understanding between all stakeholders and also for development. It means we also need to use this kind of documentation or models or whatever to, let's say, motivate people to read these documents, to understand these documents, because otherwise you will document something that on the one hand nobody will read, and on the other hand nobody will understand, and then you just could save your time and stop this activity. When doing RE, then we also need to think of for whom is this part of documentation that they are able to understand. This should be as easy as possible, even if this is somehow complex, but we need to use an appropriate way of documenting the things. Maybe, because just looking to the time, you're already reaching the end, unfortunately. Time really ran away the last hour. Maybe especially this part of documentation could be a nice next webinar. If you like, Karolina and Sylwia, I think this could be a nice topic for maybe next year, someone. And I'm really happy that both of you have joined the session. I think this was a really lively discussion that we have had. And I also would like to thank all the participants for joining the session. I hope you enjoyed and you could take some important points with you on the topic of elicitation, how to identify stakeholders, how to use techniques for elicitation. And as already mentioned, the session will be recorded by somewhere next week. I will send you an information and we'll share this information anyhow at social media. So stay tuned and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.